A pioneering diplomatic giant died today. Kofi Annan served 10 years as the United Nations Secretary General beginning back in 1997. Born in Ghana, Annan was the first black African to hold that position. Annan in the UN won the Nobel Peace Prize back in 2001 and showed unwavering leadership in his opposition to the U.S. invasion of Iraq. U.S. Ambassador to the UN, Nikki Haley, is paying tribute to him in a statement. She says Kofi Annan devoted his life to making the world a more peaceful place through his compassion and dedication to service. He worked tirelessly to unite us and never stopped fighting for the dignity of every person. We join the entire United Nations and diplomatic community in celebrating his life and lifting the Annan family up in love and prayers. His foundation says that Annan died peacefully after a short illness with his family by his side. Kofi Annan was 80 years old. New today in the Russia investigation, a former CIA deputy director says Special Counsel Robert Mueller may be next to lose his security clearance.
I think what the president is doing in part is sending a menacing signal to the prosecutors and the investigators on the Mueller team that if they continue their investigation, that their security clearance, which they need in order to do their job, is being put in jeopardy.
So if Mueller or his team were to lose their clearances, that would be the end to the Russia investigation. But is the president willing to go that far? Here with more, former Assistant Watergate Special Prosecutor Jill Wine-Banks. Jill is also an MSNBC contributor and a good friend of this broadcast. It's good to see you, Jill. Let's get right into it. If the president does not decide to fire Robert Mueller, rather just revoke his security clearance, would the president remain clear of obstruction charges, or could that all be enveloped in the future?
I think it could be part of the obstruction. He is, at the present time, obstructing in plain sight, and we are seeing it. I don't know how anybody doesn't see it. It's been really bad. I think the threat to take away the security clearance of Orr, who is a current employee, is his test pattern. If he gets away with doing that to Orr, who could lose his job because he needs his security clearance since he is a current employee of the department, then is Mueller far behind, or is Mueller's staff far behind? And that would definitely interfere with getting some of the information that needs to be investigated as part of the Russiagate case.
Look, Mueller also appears to be closing in somewhat on Trump campaign advisor Roger Stone. Here's what Stone had to say about it this week. Take a listen.
I think if they bring a case against me, it will be a fabricated case, and there's no circumstances whatsoever, Ed, in which I will testify against the president. I have no information that would be negative towards the president, and I'm not going to make any up in order to get out of a tight spot if some false allegation is brought against me.
Do you see Stone changing his tune at all, particularly if Paul Manafort is convicted?
Well, for a man who dresses as nattily as Roger Stone does, I don't see him being comfortable in an orange jumpsuit. So that might impact him. And a lot of people talk big when they are just sort of thinking about what might happen. But when they're actually called before a grand jury and confronted with, as he probably would be, facts that Mueller knows that he doesn't know, that he, Roger Stone, doesn't know Mueller knows, and realizes that they have the goods on him, he may start to talk a different tune.
Mueller's asking for, up to 6 months it is in prison for former Trump advisor George Papadopoulos. So what kind of message does it send to anybody else who might be thinking of cooperating with Mueller?
Well, it would send a message that they better actually cooperate, because I think what this says, when you compare it to the Gates recommendation, which could be that he have a probation, that he never serve any time. This is one that says he should be incarcerated. And it's not so much how long it is, because the crime only carries a recommendation under the federal guidelines of 0 to 6 months. So they're saying it could be up to 6 months, but he should be incarcerated. That means it's not 0. And that is something that says you better actually cooperate. It means he's still not telling the truth. He definitely affected the early investigation by not talking about the professor that he met with and who could have been interviewed because he was in America. He is now overseas and cannot be interviewed. So it's a serious problem that he committed this crime and that he could go to jail for it.
I'm curious your read on the Manafort trial, the fact that the jury's deliberated for 2 days already. They've headed into the weekend. They have it off. They come back Monday, 9:30 a.m. How do you read that? Is it something that can benefit the defense, as Paul Manafort's attorney has said he believes?
No, I think that in a case where there are 18 counts and a lot of documents and a lot of things that the jury wasn't allowed to see during the trial, but they now can have in the jury room to look at, juries take their jobs seriously, and I don't think that it is very long. I would have been surprised if there was a verdict before 3 days or more, because it takes that long to go through the evidence. And I think the fact that the president tweeted and that the defense lawyers have said, we're so glad to have the president's support, is really an abysmal abuse of the president's power. He should not be helping the prosecution, the defense rather, in this case. And it's just wrong for him to have done that, and it's wrong for the defense lawyers to have commented on it.
Well, we're going to be watching very closely the outcome of that case, certainly with your help, Jill Wine-Banks. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Alex.
Why a key group of voters who helped elect the president just might make him see blue in November.
What happens if he wants to do something on the foreign front in terms of some type of military adventure? You know, the wag the dog scenario as a way to distract attention as things get increasingly tough for him and the waters get even choppier. How desperate is he going to become? What else is he going to do in order to distract attention?
Former CIA Director John Brennan there reacting to the Washington Post new report saying that top White House communications aides have discussed the optimum times to release documents, revoking security clearances from other current and former officials as a distraction during unfavorable news cycles. And that's according to one senior White House official. Let's bring in Peter Emerson. He's worked in 3 Democratic administrations, and Republican strategist Rena Shaw. We'll go ladies first with you, Rena. So do you believe the action against Brennan was timed to create a distraction from other things? And gee, can't even imagine what that might be, Omarosa and anything else. But I mean, if so, why aren't more Republicans raising alarms about this?
Well, I think Bill Maher said it best in his monologue on HBO last night. He said the reality show people have now become reality. And that's a terrible thing. This week with Omarosa was just unbelievable. And I think the White House could not take it anymore. They had to roll out some sort of distraction. So let's do it with Brennan, one of the people that President Trump genuinely hates the most, it seems. But what's most concerning here, and what should concern everybody, Republicans, Democrats alike, is that this is a McCarthy-era tactic to silence critics. I mean, the threat, the tone that Sarah Sanders took when she rolled out the revocation of Brennan's security clearance, it just was too much. And I think Republicans should see this for what it is. This is President Trump trying to silence his critics, and that's terrible for democracy. It sets a bad precedent for the future. I mean, what about the future if we have a Democrat president? Is he going to try to silence his Republican critics? So it comes down to this, Alex, is if you don't like what John Brennan has to say, fine. But you should believe that he has a right to say it. He's not out there running around declassifying information. He's just exercising his freedom of speech.
So, Peter, given your experience working in 3 administrations, how far does this strategy of going after critics like this, trying to create distractions, how far does that stray from standard White House operations?
There are always distractions in political campaigns and midterms and general elections. But what we're talking about here is the national security of the United States. I just spent 28 hours as a guest of the Navy on a nuclear supercarrier off the Pacific coast. And when I saw firsthand what is going into protecting America, and I'm watching what's happening in Washington, it's extraordinary, the gap. So all of this distraction is diminishing and hurting the national security of America. John Brennan will continue to speak out. It's at best an incompetent attempt to silence him. And it's a terrible assault on the First Amendment. At the end of the day, it's a very smart move on distracting us from the real issues, which is the national security of the United States. The integrity of these elections, because circumstantial evidence is that the Russians have already started voting already in our elections. So as Mr. Brennan said on the interview you showed earlier, no doubt that a distraction could also include a terrorist attack on an American facility abroad or on the United States, which would galvanize support around Mr. Trump. If I were the Russians, I'd want to continue my influence in the White House.
Talk about distractions, if not also perhaps giving the president someone, a sparring partner, if you will, Rena, because there's a columnist for Bloomberg Opinion who had this take on Brennan's security clearance being revoked. Quote, far from trying to silence Brennan, Trump is elevating him. He wants to make Brennan the face of the so-called resistance. He's a man who approaches politics like professional wrestling, happy to play the villain if it energizes his base. And for Trump, Brennan is a perfect adversary. Is he right?
Yeah, he's right, but this goes beyond Brennan. I mean, the talk of them revoking other great figures, patriots, I call them, people like Bob Gates and Panetta, and I mean, names you hear and you can't even believe, George Tenet. I mean, these people are real patriots, and they have a lot to offer people who are currently serving in intelligence at the top levels of national security in our country. We have to know where we've been to know where we are going, and by revoking these clearances of all these people who could guide current officials, this is no good for America. So the base at some point for being the patriots that they are and sort of thumping that book of we need to be safe, we need to be secure, and defense comes first. I mean, what are they going to make of this as it continues on? And Trump slowly but surely makes it very clear that he just doesn't like these people because they criticize him, right? This is no good. So I think we're just in a moment where we don't know how this is going to fully play out, and it's just it's a very sad day in America when we again see these McCarthy-era tactics come to the very surface. I never thought I'd see the day, not in 2018.
You know, it's interesting. You're echoing the sentiments of James Stavridis, who's the former, of course, Allied Supreme Commander of NATO, who said that while he was in that position, he would frequently reach out to his predecessors because you need to get that institutional knowledge, the big picture, the historical context, all of that, which if these former security chiefs are denied access to current security, they're unable to perhaps help put this in perspective. So it was interesting talking to him and echoing your sentiments as well there. Okay, Peter, I want to switch gears a bit and turn to the former Trump campaign advisor and White House chief strategist Steve Bannon. He shared his view on the midterm campaign strategies in the exclusive interview that he had last night with MSNBC's Ari Melber. Here's part of that.
I think the Democrats, and particularly the grassroots Democrats, are running as an impeachment campaign. I think our side has to understand that. Tom Steyer and the grassroots of the Democratic Party have put it on the ballot, and so has Nancy Pelosi. Right now, Ari, when they say they're not talking about impeachment, it's because they've looked at the crosstabs in the polling, and they understand when we put impeachment on the ballot that it is a way to get all of the deplorables out. Even if the congressman in your district is a rhino, that you have to come out to support President Trump.
Is he right, Peter, about impeachment possibly backfiring on Democrats?
He is, but also the fact is that Steve Bannon long ago decided to switch out reality for his own delusion of grandeur and a new world order where he'd be whispering in the ear of the despot. The problem is he's not able to whisper in the ear of the despot directly, so he's using television. There's no question that some of the polling is showing at this moment, it's very important, we're months away, and in this unbelievably turgid world of politics, anything could happen between now and November 6th. So for the moment, I'm happy to agree that I would rather stay away from impeachment and simply stay on the issues that affect the voters locally, whether it's traffic, education for your kids, health care, and stay away from the larger issue that Tom Steyer is frankly using for his own personal aggrandizement.
Okay, and last word to you, Rena, on this. Do you believe that talk of impeachment just emboldens the Trump base and other Republicans to come on out?
Yeah, I mean, definitely. Look, this is the problem here with Democrats is that they've been beating that drum for a while, and it hasn't really seemed to do much. It hasn't even energized that moderate middle that perhaps is concerned about the way President Trump is acting and heading down that road towards actions that could very well warrant impeachment. But I think this is the real issue, and Democrats and Nancy Pelosi or whoever new crops up to sort of be their next leader, they need to talk about the issues. They aren't able, and Nancy Pelosi, of all people, really exhibited this last week. She couldn't really say what Democrats stand for anymore. So this whole impeachment thing, I think even they're understanding that this is a no-win for us come the midterms. We need to talk about issues. We need to talk about what we stand for and what our real policy positions are. And that's the only way they can really make that blue wave happen that they talk about.
Okay, Rena and Peter, who's nodding in agreement. Thank you very much. Good to see you both.
Thank you.
In a moment, why the judge in the Manafort trial says the jury is scared. And next hour, the lies of George Papadopoulos and the price he may pay for them.